Welcome back to the show, folks, and today we have a very special lineup for you. Joining me today are two powerhouse voices who have fearlessly been pulling back corruption and exposing the games that the system plays. First up, the marvellous Victoria Rixon, a tireless campaigner, unafraid to call out injustice where it stands. Alongside her, the sharp-witted and unshakable Dr. Zaius, an alias which has become synonymous with challenging authority head-on. From the fraudulent racket of council tax, to NHS whistleblowing, to the everyday battles of defeating a system that is so stacked against us. Today's conversation is about resilience, resistance, and revealing how the so-called rule of law is really just a game played at our expense. So sit back, relax, and prepare to hear first-hand stories, insights and strategies from people who have stood their ground against the status quo. So, let's get into it.
Are you concerned about all this corruption being rebranded as conspiracy theory? Well, don't you worry. Sit back and relax and join in the conversation with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
Right, okay, so welcome both of you, by the way, and thank you for giving up your time today. If the sound goes mute on me, it's because I've got work going on at the house and it's just not ideal. So yes, who would like to kick this off?
Well, obviously, I saw your podcast together on Facebook, and I was away with the family having a break, and I put it on while I was cooking stovies and listened away. And I think for me, I might be a whistleblower on maternity matters, but what is really, really embedded deep within me is the common law aspect of life, that linking to bill fraud or it doesn't matter what it is, it's that injustice of taking money and fraudulently stealing from people. I cannot bear it. So for me, although the whistleblowing has been a very good storytelling and it's been very cathartic, I feel that road is coming to an end.
It was a good in.
Yeah, it was. And you know what? It really opened up that I understood with the fact that because I didn't have a job, I asked the question of my local council, I can't pay my council tax, can you help me? And they sent me to court. It was almost like
the answer is no.
And the answer is no, Victoria. You will starve, and so will your family. And I think for me, I was meant to learn that, and it is a real passion of mine. I've always enjoyed understanding law, and having a bit of a debate. I'm a bit of a debate person. So for me, this whole journey has been so empowering, and I think I will always continue working alongside this point in my life, you know, where you're always questioning everything.
It takes a very important part of your life to happen where you're compromised or put in a very difficult position where you're unable to make ends meet, or you have these demands coming through your letterbox, and then it comes to a time when you have to compromise and say, hold on a minute, this demand letter is too much and the amount you're asking for is too much. I cannot afford it. And then you see the mask of every council slip, where it becomes very much a case of almost mafia-like, in a state of what you have to pay. You will pay. And if you don't, we'll send the boys round.
It borderlines really on not terrorism. What's the other one?
Racketeering.
Where they torment you, torture. The Torture Act.
Yeah. And I think
torture, because the government gets money out of it.
Yes. And I think for me, I really reflected yesterday because I was going through some of my letters, because I've obviously been away for 2.5 weeks, and I came home to a pile of letters, and there was one from a bailiff saying, you're now due £4,800 for your cost order against you with Jacobs, when they never proved their authority. And we are talking about £256 of arrears of council tax. That's all I've got. All I've got. So you slapped me to 4,800. This is why I will not back down. You hear me,
Never back
Jacob?
down.
I will not back down.
Good on
No
you.
doubt they'll watch this and be like, "Oh no, people are waking up. Oh no." Most of them will just roll their eyes and turn around and say, "Oh, well, we're one of many fish in the pond, so they'll just keep fishing, because that's their goal. It's just to fish, 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 and
It is.
see how much they can get."
I mean,
I
I
suppose.
think.
Sorry,
No,
carry on.
no, go on. You're right. You were in mid-flow.
I was just going to say, with the recent with Angela Reeves dodging taxes and things like that. Sorry, Angela Rayner. Angela Reeves, Angela Rayner. I don't know who she is. I literally saw that on the news and was just like, "Oh, another MP dodging taxes." Oh, well, there you go.
Shock horror.
If that doesn't tell the country the hypocrisy at its finest, the Deputy Prime Minister won't pay taxes on her own properties. I mean, how does that not wake people up? The fact it's just us and them, and they are in the position where they can just say, "Oh no, I'm not going to pay this tax," because they know the tax is bogus, it's rubbish, it's just revenue for the government. It's just revenue. And she's, "Oh, well, I'm part of the government. I don't need to pay revenue." How anyone listening to the podcast? How can you sit there and just say, "Oh, but you have to pay"? Why should we pay if the people in power do not pay? Oh, well, she's been fired. Yeah, but she still didn't pay. And who knows how many other MPs are not paying? They're just more
Exactly.
clever than she is.
Even when they get found out, there's no repercussions. There's no. I wish I hadn't got found out because now I've got to pay back so much. There's none of that. No prison. Nothing. So
Nothing.
even if they do what they do, they know that there's no comeback for them unless we start doing what they're doing in Nepal, which is a whole completely different story.
And if she's this woman of the people that they claim she was, she's got an £800,000 flat that she could just sell with a click of a finger, and she's got money there that would last for decades. So she's not going to starve. She's not going to suffer. Regardless, she's made it financially. You don't need to worry about any other obligations. You've made your money. You're done. But for the rest of us, that's dream money. Dream money. £800,000. I know people who could live off that for the rest of their lives. But
Yeah.
it's literally just us and them, and it's a completely shift of class. And the class system is very much alive.
Do you see a turning point? Do both of you see a light at the end of the tunnel with regards to this? Do you think things are going to get much darker before they get much lighter? Where are you on this?
I think what's really poignant about this podcast, right, is that we've both walked different roads. And I know, Chris, you pay council tax. And like I said to you in my voice note, I don't judge you for that. I don't judge anyone. That's your road. And if we can separate ourselves from other people's choices and go within, it doesn't bother you what anybody else does. But in this instance, I was pulled down a road of fighting it and asking the question and the why, the what's, the if, the buts, the proof, the liability, all of that. Whereas, you went a different road, Dr. Zaius, on the other side, where you just ignored and did it a different way and didn't go into the court. And neither of them are wrong, because what I've learned as I've got older, and I'm in my 40s now, is every story has a puzzle, and every piece is something in that puzzle. And nothing, I don't think there's one remedy for anything. I don't think there's one remedy for council tax, gas, electricity, water, or TV. There is no one remedy. And what works for one does not work for the other, and vice versa, because they are very tactical companies and corporations. They foresee what they've already had presented to them, and then they change the way that they respond, or they change the way that they work. Now, the one thing I've learned is I cannot copy anybody else's work, because I won't fully understand it. Now, when I started this, I went into the council tax illegal Facebook group, and that then took me to the Baron David Ward's affidavit, statement of truth, and into the unlawful, the lians and all of that sort of thing. And I remember being sat on my laptop, and I'm a Virgo, I need to understand something right back. I understand a baby is born, but I need to know how that baby got there. I need to know where its heart was formed, where the sperm came in. I need to know it all. That's just my brain. Whereas someone goes, well, baby's born, it doesn't really matter. And that's okay. So in my experience when I sat and did the Baron David Ward, and I watched Kirsty Cave on Richard Phobes, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. What is this affidavit? I've never heard of it. Now we obviously know they've replaced it with a witness statement that can be pulled apart in their 12 presumptions of law if you agree to their maritime laws and ways and admiralty law. But if you look at an affidavit, it's yours, it's your words, it's your bond. So for me, when I went down that road, it didn't feel right. Something didn't feel right. And I was joining the groups, learning this affidavit, but I didn't understand why I was doing it. Why am I doing this? So for me, I had to stop on week 2 and go back to the council and then look at the Local Government Act 1888. I went right back to all of their sections and subsections and looking at why that then got us to the Local Finance Government Act 1992. And I'm like, hang on a minute, what is happening? And that's how I started to unpick it myself. So I'm one of these people as well that, if someone says, oh, I don't pay TV license, I go, why? And they go, I just don't bother. That's fine, but my brain doesn't analyze things that way. So I had to understand why you're not going to pay TV licenses funded by the BBC, and then understanding what that corporation was. But for me, it was really finding out that as a midwife of my local community, I meant nothing. And I'm not saying that in a martyr way or I'm an arrogant arsehole. I'm saying
just a number.
Yeah, I've just left my job where I've just about to whistleblow publicly that patients are being neglected and that their babies could be dying, and it was mass negligence and criminal harm and criminal manslaughter, which is what I wrote to Luke Pollard, Gary Streeter, and Johnny Mercer. And to get you're not in our constituent. No, but your goddamn women are, and their families are, and I'm telling you what's happening in here. So because I came out of it with such anger and pain and suffering, for my local council to not recognise my humbled work and say, no, we're going to get you in a courtroom, I was savage. I was like, how effing dare they? I was so angry. But that anger's now subsided because they could walk to my door. The police could walk to my door. They could, threaten me. I don't care anymore, because on a higher level in myself, working inward in the last 18 months, I've learned that this is all just a game. And you can either be the rook, you can be the pawn, you can be the king or the queen. But it's your life and it's your path, and you have to work out yourself while you're here. And it's not external. Now, people might say to me, but you're doing external work. Yes, I am, because my role is I'm like a blockchain in the bigger picture. I'm bringing and facilitating information. That's why I've always been that person. I've always been outspoken, and I'll have a good debate. And I'm not afraid to stand up in a room. If 99% of the people in that room voted for Tony Blair, I would go the other way and vote for the man down the road. That's who I've always been, and I'll never change. But in this situation, it's not about why you shouldn't, it's not about just stopping paying council tax. It's understanding why. When you understand that part, it's not possible to ignore the fact that this is a biblical, spiritual war on humanity.
100%. I'll go with that.
Here.
Absolutely. Especially that last sentiment.
Yeah, definitely. It's I think a lot of people forget how much time has passed when you've come to, obviously we had the poll tax before that, and we go even further back. You got obviously the Bill of Rights and things like that. Time's changed over the course of 100 years, and it's got to the point now where people are suffering. And the reason why we've had probably the last 18, 20 months, people have just started to think, oh, hang on about council tax. This doesn't seem right. It's because people are in that compromised position where they're unable to pay. And obviously we've had a lot of issues when it comes to government. We've had a lot of issues when it comes to the bans being inaccurate. And obviously we've got the situation in Britain where we've got people coming over into the country, and those taxes do go to those people. And a lot of people are saying, well, that's not fair. That's using our money for things we haven't agreed to. And in the exact same manner, as Victoria was saying, it is a game. It is just a game. But unlike Victoria,
They're listening
Hello.
to us. They're
They're
listening
listening.
to us. This happened to me the other day. I was on a Zoom talking about midwifery, and it was a few of us across the world. And
It's very difficult to play a game with someone you don't know because you don't know their strategies, you don't know what they're going to do next, and you don't know if they're just going to get up and walk away
Dr.
in a Viking
Zaius,
game of chess.
where are you? Because we lost you probably for about 20 seconds during that, and your mouth is either really close to the phone or something, so you're like crackly.
Oh, am I? Can
Yeah.
you hear me now?
Yeah, that's cool. That's nice. It was just
Okay.
a
Where
little
was
bit.
I?
Um, where were we, Victoria?
you were
Oh,
talking about people can't afford to pay this, and then
that's
you
right.
Oh,
gone.
yeah. People can't afford to pay it, and the reason why is because it's obviously the money's going to things they haven't agreed to. So they've started to wake up because it's a case of, well, the street needs re-tarmacking, but you're giving the money to this local hotel full of immigrants.
Mm,
That's not something we've agreed to. So people are waking up in that fashion. I mean, we ourselves have been awake years and years and years before this because we've seen the system and how it works.
mm,
But people are then discovering the system as it is. Obviously, you've got the Facebook like cancel tax illegal and things like that, and there's stuff on there that's interesting. Nothing I've seen that's practical though. And in the case of Victoria, obviously you've challenged it through the courts, and the court system is the game. And I was just saying about before I crackled up, it is just a game. And why play the game when the rules can change at any time? Which is why I've taken the different route of basically being away from it and stating, well, it's hard to play a game with someone you don't know or you don't even know is going to show up to play. So
yeah.
it's
See,
very, very difficult for them.
I think it was Russell J. Gold that I was talking to a while back, and he said that, you're trying to fight a system and you're trying to be honorable, but the people that you're fighting have no honor and they will do anything. They just have no moral compass. They will literally sell their own down the river. So when you're up against that kind of persona magnified within like an institution like a government, it is rather difficult to try and take the line that say Victoria's gone because there's much more of a fight there. Does that make sense, or am I
Yeah.
talking guff?
Oh, no, definitely. Victoria's chosen, I'd say, probably even more of an honourable route than I have. I've
I mean,
just.
don't get me wrong. I wasn't taken away from your route.
Oh, no,
I
totally. No,
wasn't
I agree
saying
with you,
no.
though. I completely agree. It is a very difficult game, and Victoria's tackled it head on while I've slipped away, and they're like a fish. I'm
Yeah,
back in the river.
but saying that though, you will resonate with, I say this to my children, like one's a night owl, one's a morning person. So my husband's a night owl, I'm a morning person. If we lived in our original ancestral makeup, we would have been in a small village where you would have needed someone to keep the fire going. And if we were all morning birds, we would all wake up with no fire and no food. And that's how we are as human beings, and we all take different routes. And I love the fact that there's an option for everybody. But what people panic is they read loads of information and they don't go within to find out which one matches them. Whereas because
Yeah.
I'm very connected to myself and I knew instinctively, like I said, that the affidavit Baron David Ward was much later in my learning. I needed it now, not then. So but the court system is very sneaky because if you look back at our own common law, Black's law, all of this stuff, they are very clever, very, very clever what they've done. And it's just about unpicking it. So I obviously failed on a administrative matter. So it's all administration, and you've got to meet their administration with administration. In my eyes, that's my opinion. That doesn't match everybody because people were like, why are you going to court? And, you're playing into the hands. And one lady had a right go at me. And I'm like, that's not your road. And that's okay that you go that other road. But in the instance with the court, I wasn't doing it to win. I wasn't doing it to win. I was doing it to expose. I was exposing them and shining a light on them. It wasn't about the win. That's why I continue doing what I do. So I'm in a situation now where, I lost. Well, it wasn't a loss. Again, it was an exposure in my court case with Jacobs and against Plymouth City Council, they had no authority. Now, obviously, they say I lost, and there was a court order of costs against me. Now, I avoided that, and it's been stamped at the High Court of Justice. It's been stamped and received, and they're still enforcing the debt. And I'm saying, well, hold on a minute. It's been received in the High Court, higher court than you, and stamped, and it's got a number on it, which means it's been accepted and received. So this is now voided. But I think what people worry about is that's going to go on my credit file. But every time you challenge something, they can't do something else. They have to do another alternative. And yes, it is a bit of a chasing your tail game, but eventually they leave you alone. So, for instance, Jacobs have shut my account. Well, you can't enforce a cost order if you've got no authority. And you've got no authority, which is why really you're just sending me paperwork with the four corner rule that it doesn't exist in the box. So I either pick up on that as a clue or I don't. And if you pick up on it and you learn all this slowly catches the monkey, eventually they always show you their truth in every bit of correspondence. And it's just you've got to find the piece that you can use against them. So the situation I'm in now is that I go on Plymouth City Council website and it says next instalment due 0, and my bill has been zeroed. So I've got Jacobs closing my account and saying we're no longer enforcing the debt. I've got the councils investigating Jacobs because obviously I lost my baby the week of my court case. I had a midwife come out to my house who was a sonographer, and she measured my baby, who is in the freezer, because I wanted proof that my baby existed. Now, you've got to remember that under administrative maritime law and their rules, a baby isn't viable until when? You have a scan under the NHS. But under our sovereign monarchy, you are always a 46 monozygotic sovereign monarchy divine being from fertilization. But they remove your existence until you're 12 weeks. So I need the evidence that my baby existed, and it actually died the week of my court case. Well, under the tort of law, that's barratry. So I've given this back to them. And said, you killed my baby. You put me under duress stress. You knew I was vulnerable. You knew I was pregnant. And under the rule of common law, under this tort of law, this is what you've done. And now they've all run away.
It takes to that point where you've got these companies. Ironically, Jacobs actually is the only company I've not dealt with when it came to Plymouth City Council. It was actually, they've got JPW, and then they moved into another company. There was Phoenix, Marston's, and a few others. So they were passing it around. But Jacobs was the only one I didn't deal with. Ross and Roberts, that was the other one. But they're all same. All the letters are the same. It's all just, cookie cut, threatening letters. And yeah, you're right. If you challenge this, like Victoria has, you challenge the system, they crumble. Because there is nothing they can do to enforce these things. You've got, for example, the attachment of earnings. I think that's the one part that is quite a worry for most people who work all the time and don't pay. But you've got some legislation. I've written some of it down. Was it? So the councils don't have any judicial authority to issue orders because it breaches Section 78, Paragraph 2 of the Local Government Act 1888. You've got the Employment Rights Act 1996, Section 3, Paragraph 1, which basically says that you don't consent to the deduction. And of course, this regulation is not a statutory provision, but it's there for the public to use because, of course, you have to agree to the deduction. And of course, when you ask for them to present the proof of liability authorised by the courts, including, of course, you've got the court order, they've got nothing. So if you are, whoever's listening, in the case of attachment of earnings, challenge it with the instruments that the councils are using, because that's their language. You can't make an argument with someone if you're speaking a different language. They won't understand. They'll say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And that's the same with freeman of the land and using a different common law jurisdiction thing. They can't speak that language. The only way they speak the language is if you tackle them with their language, their authorities.
Most courts don't even recognise common law, do they?
No, they've got the new council tax book coming out this month. It's the 15th volume, I believe.
15th edition.
15th edition. That book, I guarantee anyone, will still contain in the liability order section the same paragraph it has for the last, 20 years, something like that.
Yeah, this is what my case. If I would love you to see my bundle, because what I did was
I'd love to see the bundle.
Now then.
Well, it's 332 pages.
Blimey.
Half of it is their presumptions of law, all of their law, all of their language, and the other half is my language. So I tried to hit them not with this birth certificate, free man of the land on its own. I went in with, okay, you want to talk law, you want to talk your language, I will talk your language in this section. But in this section, you will then understand my language, because you're everything you're saying is absolutely spot on, and all of your citing of referencing is spot on, and it's all within my bundle. And all I tried to do was, Your Honour, it was removed from law in 2003 as a statutory instrument on page this, and this 223, 224, I think it is, of the 14th edition.
Please tell me you had the handbook with you and you held it up. This is their handbook.
I actually when you see my bundle, it is incredible. And I didn't write the common law part. I had a team who have been. So we're actually about to announce something quite big, but I'm not going to put it on here today, because I'm just waiting on some final information. But basically, what I decided to do was, well, if we're going to think about doing it their way, they will understand a certain element of it being woven in. But my argument was, I held up the magistrate liability order. And my argument is, I'm a midwife that has a DBS check every year, and you've put me in a court and made a judgment on me because I'm in your memorandum of entry. I need to tell the NMC in the DBS check that I've had a trial against me and found guilty of something in a court. So
it doesn't exist. It's completely off the record.
Exactly. So my argument is, Your Honour, he hated me. He absolutely loathed me. And I was like, I
wouldn't have given him the dignity of calling him Your Honour.
Well,
I would have just said, what's your name?
Do you know, I wanted to play part of his ego, actually.
Oh, you went. This is the thing. You go down the different road. I'm not a de-authoritarian person, but I definitely agree. Like, obviously, when you address them as Your Honour, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You are basically performing their authority and saying, if you're called Your Honour, you are in a position of authority.
I was absolutely using my own chess piece on his ego, but when he silenced me, I unsilenced myself and said, I have a right as a claimant in this courtroom to discuss my case. And he tried to put me down a road. Right, Mrs. Rixon, we're going to go to your witness statement. And because I was doing this as an exposure, and I took Wayne Layton as a bystander to watch, and he's obviously the Layton versus Bristow and Souter, amazing guy who's done a lot for humanity. But he came with me and he watched as a bystander. Now, what was interesting was I wasn't there to start slamming my birth certificate out. I wanted to expose it. I wanted to have as long as I could to make sure I could get out of this something that I could use in the next step of my own journey on this. So what I did was I decided, out of the whole 332 pages, what is the most important document that I have in here? And it was the summons to the magistrate court.
Yeah, their own document. Their own piece of fraud they give you.
Their own piece of fraud. So what I did was we weaved the 14th edition, page 223, 224 of the Council Tax Handbook, that the Form A was removed from law in 2001 in England, in October 2001. 2003, sorry, my apologies. So I weaved that in. Your Honour, if this was removed from law, how have I got a Plymouth magistrate summoned to a court? This is either you or it's the council. Who is it? Oh my God, he went absolutely apeshit.
But then surely, like anybody in any argument, doesn't matter what you're talking about, the moment the other party or yourself starts to lose their temper or composure, they've lost the argument, because they've run out of lines on the paper, as it were. You've lost your track because there's nothing for you to say except to backtrack. So you had a judge up there, whatever he was, stating, all these things in a highlighted voice in the court. How unprofessional.
Yeah. And he actually, because I rattled him and I didn't stop talking, he actually shut me down, silenced me, and I started typing in the inbox. I have a right under, human rights of free speech and rights to a fair trial. I was punching away in the bloody box. But what was interesting was when I came back and I said, Your Honour, I would really like to go through some of my particulars of claim. And he went, oh, Mrs. Rixon, on you go. So obviously when I then did that, because I pushed him too far, he went, right, that's this. I've made my decision. I'm striking out this claim. I went, well, that's not fair. How are you striking out? Why are you striking out this claim? Because you shouldn't have brought the claim. Why shouldn't I have brought the claim? You've already admitted I was harassed by Jacobs. You even admitted here today that this is a lot. So then I thought, go silent. So I went silent, allowed him to dig his own hole.
Yeah.
And then I got a text message from Wayne saying, bring up the harassment now, because he'd made his cost order against the strikeout for GDPR, but he had admitted the harassment. So this is what I loved. He then made his order, asked the Egypt barrister dude, whatever his name is, can't remember now, Russell, the costs that they'd incurred. And then what was really funny was once he'd done that, it says, right then, Your Honour, so now we've settled that matter, what about the harassment you've agreed? Because I don't need to please schedule 26 paragraph 12 for this harassment. And he went, Mr. Russell, what's your thoughts? Oh my God, I thought, what judge would then go back on his order and then ask a further question, you dimwit? It was cringe.
Yeah, that in itself it's favoritism. Yeah. It's saying, because he's on their side. He's saying, oh, come on, jump in, say something. Yeah. That's the reason he said that, is because he's saying, I'm stuck. I need the other people to come in here. Yeah. That's why he wanted them to come in to help him out, to obviously go against you. So he'd already made his decision, and that's another reason I will never walk in a courtroom like that unless I'm dragged in by my heels, in my ape mask, because they've already made the decision before you've walked in the door.
Victoria, have you got a mortgage or you rent?
No, I deliberately feel from a child, the only time I wanted to buy a house was when I became a midwife, because I went into that social class of point scoring. I noticed my ego was filled up when I became a midwife, because I've made something of myself. Having forgotten I made something of myself 3 times when I gave birth to 3 beautiful boys. So I have no mortgage. I have no savings. I have no job, and I have nothing on purpose.
Okay. What about you, Dr. Zaius?
I make money legally. I'll state that for the record. I do. I make money, and I've got
the only reason why I
obviously
asked
on my pay slips and things like that. But I don't have a mortgage. I think I said that on our podcast. I never will in this country, simply because of the banks. I never will have a mortgage ever.
See, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a noose, but having said
it's a very, very long noose. It's a very, very long noose as a mortgage. It is a long noose. And above all, you don't know when something might go wrong. And of course, like anybody's, things in life change, and you don't know when the bank's going to pull that lever, and then it's over, and then they can just take your house.
Because the main point I'm making is that because a lot of people who are fighting the council tax, they are usually people that are renting and not having the house. And because I say that because they can put liens on your house, can't they? Or they can try and put liens on your house if you own your home. If you rent or it's a council house and they're stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But if you own your own property, then you take a much bigger risk. So I kind of want to know, is there any ways in which a homeowner could tackle what you guys are tackling, given that there's much more risk attached to it?
Well, you can, but I think it's fear. I think you have to have...
Fear is a huge part.
Yeah, you have to have the attitude of, it doesn't belong to me anyway. It's not mine. It's under their fiat currency system. They could pull the plug at any moment. They own the banks. They own your mortgage. If you look into mortgage fraud, it's enormous.
Oh dear.
It's absolutely enormous. I think they make something like 70% the minute you sign on the
Yeah.
dotted line, and you're committing fraud by signing in the box of your own trust fund anyway. And when
Exactly,
you
you've created the money.
yeah. And once you know about it, Chris, if you then continue to do it, you are at risk of that karmic debt, your karmic repayment. Because this is why I can never pay council tax, because I know now, and I'm like, right, so I can never pay it again.
No, you can't. The moment you start to pay again, you basically bow to the authority, and you'll probably find that all the previous years' arrears or whatever they've put forward will come and back and grab you, because they'll just say, "Oh, but you haven't paid for this many years," and they'll instantly throw that on you. I'd just like to say that you saying about being afraid of it. I think a good quote is, "Fear is simply the lack of understanding."
Yeah.
That's what fear is. It's the lack of understanding. Even if it's a base fear of something that's coming at you, your understanding of it is that it wants to do something to you that's horrible.
Like a phobia.
Yeah, like a phobia. But some phobias are irrational. Like
yeah.
if someone had I don't know, a fear of sharks coming at you, it's an instinctual fear because you know what's going to happen. But if you don't understand certain things, you've also got an irrational fear of lack of understanding. If you don't understand something, you are going to be afraid of it, which is what these enforcement agent companies prey on.
Yep.
If you don't understand why they're there, or you think you do, and you think it's because you haven't paid this particular tax, then you are going to be afraid, which is what they prey on. I think probably Victoria's got this in her bundle, is the fact that they put red letter writing on all of these things, including the councils. And the reason they use red is because red is a colour infringed with fear. If you see red, it means, oh no,
danger,
this is terrible. Danger. It's a sign. Just like we have our signs in the country for red means don't go here or slow down. It's the case exactly the same with these companies and the councils. They use something as simple as a colour to inflict fear on you, to make you pay. And that in itself is not right. And I think it's illegal. You can't actually put in these threats with menaces. I think Victoria can quote me, but it's using fear, money with menaces to get the money out of you.
I mean, they shouldn't, but they do.
Yeah, and I think what we're in a time where my parents, my dad said to me, "What are you doing? What are you up to?" And it's like, if you knew this, I wouldn't bloody be here. But I'm not going to go down that road because it wasn't your journey. But I'm not doing that for my kids. I am not leaving my children open to fraud, to poor healthcare, and that they're not aware or at least able to cope with all of this that we've had to endure. I've been given it for a reason. And actually, my children, they know I'm someone that wouldn't go down a road if I didn't feel very strongly about it, because I could easily drop midwifery whistleblowing now. I've done it. There's nothing more I can do. Someone asked me to go on and do a podcast, and I thought, what's the point? I've said it all. Just go and look at all the other podcasts because it's the same. But I think because I'm so connected to myself, I know that the council tax issue is still ongoing. I can feel it. I feel it in my heart. I have to keep going with it. But the midwifery, I'm like, I've done it. It's out there.
Yeah,
there's not much I can do.
The journey's ended with that. I suppose I've written down something because it's something that I researched yesterday and came up with a few bits and pieces. I suppose what we're looking at now on the horizon that we might see in November, now it's been delayed, but is the potential new property tax that they're currently discussing in Parliament, which is effectively a new council tax. The council tax will be replaced by this property tax. I just wondered what your thoughts on that were, Victoria and Chris.
Well, I'm not overly au fait on it, if I'm honest. I have heard, but I haven't looked into, much like the shed tax that they were on about. So whatever happens, I imagine it will end up being worse off. But what does Victoria say?
Well, it's just another
Rape.
Another tool
Financial
to
rape.
wake people up. If they have to shift something from poll tax to council tax, without you agreeing to be governed by any of these people. I'm a believer. I've only voted once in my whole life, and I did that out of, I don't know. I did it because it was the Brexit thing, and I felt very strongly that as the English people, we are strong enough to live alone and be alone. That's how I felt at the time. I don't know why, because I didn't fully understand Brexit at the time, but that's why I voted. And I've never voted again, and I never voted before. The last time I went and voted, I wrote mass NHS genocide over the whole bloody card.
Nice.
And in red ink, this whole fear mongering thing of blood, it was just horrible. So for me, I just think this is a tool to wake those people up. But waking up, or whatever you want to call it, spiritual awakening, or just being a bit more aware of what's going on in life. I've learned something, that when I whistle blew and I came out, I got a lot of stick for how late I arrived to the party. What took you so long? Why now? And I think
Was this
what's really,
my divine intervention?
well, my divine intervention, absolutely. But also, let's look at it this way: 33% of people are completely asleep, 33% of people are completely awake, and 33% of people are in the middle. You don't want to even go near the people that aren't going to wake up, because they never will. But this bigger majority over here that's awake and that are partially there, they're the ones we've got to work on. So if we all stop trying to bring these topics to the forefront, everybody will only ever sit with a 33% completely awake, and we need to just keep filtering this out. So for me, whether it's property tax, or I'm not sure if people are aware, but Lloyds Banking have just bought loads and loads and loads and loads of properties, because Lloyds Banking Group are going to then hold the monopoly of property. So we're in a very difficult situation. It doesn't matter what area of your life, and everything is crumbling at once. The schooling, the education, policing, councils, everything is crumbling at once. And I said this on my Zoom on Tuesday with 2 New Zealand midwives. It's no coincidence they're experiencing exactly what we are here in England, because it's perfectly working and orchestrated well.
Who is it orchestrated by? Divine, is it divine happenings, or are we being shown this for a reason? Are we being shown all this to wake us up? And if so, who is pulling those strings?
Are you suggesting there's an Illuminati group of people who control everything, a bit like the Owl Society in America they've got?
Well, it's always a possibility, isn't it? But like Victoria said, everything's happening kind of at the same time. Well, throughout history, if anything happens at the same time worldwide, it's usually an agenda.
But the history is a very wonderful thing, because it does often repeat itself. And not likening obviously to the time it was, because obviously technology was different, everything was different. But it's coincidental that there are 2 major wars going on at the moment. Obviously, we know what they are. And much like you've got the World War, there was loads going on economically behind the scenes. And the same goes with now. Lots of things are happening economically in the world. Loads of things are changing and chopping and moving, and the board is very much active. But it all came off literally just after COVID, and then obviously you had Ukraine and everything else. It all happened at once.
And they all had the same colours.
Yeah, it's all very strange, because it all happened very quickly, and it all happened very so fast. I think most people couldn't even keep up, and that's not down to the public's problem. Anyone who's listening to the podcast, that's not your fault. You were led into a system where it basically led you into a state of ignorance, and ignorance, unfortunately, is the virtue of foolishness. It doesn't bring anything, ignorance, but that's how governments like their public to be ignorant. It's just a case of, right, you get on with this, and we'll handle the important things. Right. And in the case of what's going on at the moment, I think, it's not coincidental. It is not coincidental. But like what's going on with this weekend, and obviously you've got the things that have been going on in Parliament with the property tax being potentially replacing council tax. We don't know what's going on behind those closed doors, what they're really talking about. but I can guarantee you nothing is going to be in the public's favour
Of course
ever.
not.
It
Nothing is
never
ever in
will.
our interest.
Because, yeah.
I was talking to Thomas James, if I remember his name rightly, who wrote the new blueprint for humanity. And he was saying, like even technology, no technology is even released to the public unless it's been weaponized. So there's nothing that our overlords do for us where it's a benefit to us. Anything.
No, and that goes right back to so if we look at the start of life where we begin, you're already infiltrated because the mother, who is the vessel, her body is already attacked from ancestral trauma, loss of that nurture of the safety of her to grow her baby. So what we're finding is we've got young girls in school who hate their bodies, hate their looks. They've all got the same eyebrows, lips, nails, eyelashes, and they're having their labias cut off. So they're having something called labioplasty if their labias are too long. These girls don't understand that if they want to give birth vaginally, if they don't have any labias, they only are set up for a cesarean section, because you're then going to have the most horrendous tears because you haven't got the skin to stretch to allow a baby to be born, for one, but also to cut off anybody's labia in law is classed as FGM, which happens in a lot of native communities, and it's graded in stages. So there's a lot going on here, which goes right back to the beginning of your fertilization and conception. Now, if you haven't heard of Curtis Kallenbach, I suggest you go and look at that man's work. He is incredible. And I've used some of his work in my work with birth and the council tax, because it's linked to the moment you are fertilized. It's here, it's there. You are a being. You are alive. And that is such and has been such a profound journey for me, because we are never set up to thrive. It doesn't matter. But people think the minute you get out the womb, you're protected. You're not, because your mother doesn't get maternity leave. She then has to go back to work when you're 5 months old. You then have to go into a nursery where you're not nurtured and loved, and you're sat on a floor crying. It's grim. And we allow it. We allow it.
Yeah.
Barbaric.
Yeah, well, it feels very much like a conveyor belt, and very much people coming into the world are on that conveyor belt, and they're saying, look, more people that can pay tax. Marvellous.
And almost ritualistic as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, Victoria's seen it firsthand how barbaric and disgusting it is. But yeah, it is very much like a conveyor belt.
Yeah,
we do this to ourselves. That's the thing that gets me, is why do we do it to ourselves?
Yes, we do. And but I've really thought about this with my own children. If they go on and get married and have children, and they vaccinate their children and they have cesarean sections, I have done so much inner work with myself that is not my journey. That is their journey and their children's journey. And whatever is meant to be will be. So I don't have this, whereas I find some mothers can be really overbearing online. Like, I don't want my daughter to have this, and let it be. You have to do the inner work yourself. Yesterday when I saw Charlie Kirk, I burst into tears. I immediately felt sick. I ran to the bathroom. I spoke to another whistleblower who, you probably all know, Dave Cartland, and he felt exactly the same. I said, this is absolutely horrific, because I'm not saying I'm anywhere near him, but he's this amazing whistleblower on lots of different things and speaks out. And I don't agree with everything he talks about, obviously. But I came away, and then I thought, hang on a minute, you've gone external here, Victoria. Go back in. And that is the journey of our lives. We have to go within on any of it.
So meditate.
Yeah, meditate, practice, self-gratification. When I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2019, I was devastated. And I sat with these horrible doctors who poked and prodded at my body, who never made me feel anything other than their fear of litigation means that they have to tell me all the horrible things that are going to happen to me, so they're immune to it. And it destroyed me. And that went on for years and years and years, until one day I thought, no, what am I grateful for having diabetes? And that was a phrase that a man who'd lived with diabetes for 40 years said to me. Victoria, I want you to sit down. That was May not last year, the year before. And he said, I want you to sit down and I want you every day in May to write why you're grateful for diabetes. And that switched it off. And that was it. And that was the practice.
It couldn't have done you any good with the harassments and things you were getting for that as well. And obviously you've got all the health problems that you had, and the work obviously related stuff going on. I mean, sounds like hell to me.
Well, to be honest, I think as soon as I went into Plymouth Uni, if I look back, the signs were there. But because I had never done any inner work and I was doing all the external blame and they did this and you said that, and because I was in that frame of mind, now when I look back, gosh, the universe was showing me from the very beginning, this is not right. You shouldn't be here. However, it wasn't that I should have left because I was meant to be here today, but I was meant to do the inner work sooner. And that environment, it was killing me. It was killing me. Although I loved being a midwife and being with the women, I will never, ever step back into that environment again.
No, can't blame you. It's a horrible, horrible system that's developed over a very long period of time since the NHS's inception. But like, I think everything in the UK currently, from its origins to now, everything has slowly just mutated into something, a complete parody of what it used to be. But I think that's down to generations of people growing up. And like you were talking about the girls and the way they all look the same now, veneers and wearing the same clothes and all the surgical procedures they've gone through. We're heading to almost a sort of Blade Runner-esque type world where it's like you don't know what's real and who's a real person, who's a copy of this person. And we're heading to sort of that place where it's, AI as well. It's getting terrifying where you're kind of like what's really going on here? The reality of what's real is becoming faded over time. Like very much like we've lost loads of truths in history from millennia ago. Some things we don't even know how they did because it's been lost over time. You think about all that knowledge that was there, practical knowledge, is gone. Like it's faded. I was reading a book about the lost city of Z, how there were massive civilizations in the Brazilian rainforests and the rainforests out in towards the Americas. It's gone, but they had technology that and some things they did. We don't understand why and how they did it, but it's very much now like the knowledge that we are trying to put out at the moment with this podcast is for people to listen and say, before it's lost and it changes, use the knowledge that we're giving you to challenge things. And I think knowledge is very much power, as Victoria has demonstrated in her efforts. You can take the route with the knowledge. Sounds like you've got pretty much a book's worth of knowledge there, Victoria.
I find it very interesting that you and I have only not only walked a similar council, the same council, not the same enforcement.
Yeah, no city council corrupt as anything.
And then we've also worked at the same hospital, and you're not obviously a midwife, but you can vouch for the fact that it's just a horrendous cult. Well, that's my view anyway. It's a horrendous cult, and when people say, I can't believe you used that word, well, it's no different to if I was part of a women's group, and it started off being a book club and then turned into a group where we were sitting talking
wine
about
night.
Exactly, someone's husband, and so it becomes its own cult on a negative basis in that way. So for me, it was a cult because it has behavior, generational, behavioral, systemic, institutionalized behaviors. That's a cult.
Cults have, it can be based on a piece of literature that is written or unwritten. Rules, regulations, policies, it's all written down or put into a form where people understand, and that is the basis, the foundations for any cult structure. And unfortunately, as generations go on, I think all these places are becoming cult-like. Even councils are becoming cult-like in a state that they are so ignorant of what's going on behind the scenes. I remember when I challenged it, they literally stated to me that, oh yeah, we send one of our staff with the list of people who are going to pay council tax, down, like trotting on down to the magistrate's court, like carrying all that data just willy-nilly, just walking into and go, oh yeah, these people need to pay. But they were so ignorant of what the process was. It's like, can you not see how wrong that is?
Mm.
And they are just completely unaware, and it's ignorance. It's just, well, as long as it works, as long as the money keeps rolling in, we're not going to change it until, of course, things will happen.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that in the next few years, if not very soon, when things will change to the point where they have to change it. They're going to be forced to change it, because I think we're already in 7 billion amount of debt when it comes to council tax within Britain alone. So it's a case of, well, it's clearly a system that doesn't work. So if it's a system that doesn't work, then why are we still enforcing it? And it's like, even with the NHS and things like that, there's loads of policies and regulations of that simply just don't work. But there's not a department or anything where you've got a group of honesty is the key, honest people who will look at all the legislation, the policies, everything that's been written down about something and go, yeah, this needs to be refreshed. This needs to change. This needs to be rewritten. But there's nobody doing that, because there are people, as Chris mentioned earlier, there are people who profit financially off the current systems. And because time's moved forward, unfortunately, it's not going to change anytime soon, because the people who want the profits are still in power.
Yes.
Well, this is the trouble. But doesn't it kind of stem down to like a handful of families that hold all the power?
Possibly. I don't know. Like myself,
only what we're told online, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense if everything is crumbling that is a institution. If it's all crumbling, it's crumbling because the top is crumbling and they have lost some control. So you can't have the school systems crumbling and the policing. Whereas if they were all independent, I don't see, the transport repair garage down the bottom of my road crumbling, because they're not run by these institutions. They're crumbling in a sense of probably corporation tax and VAT tax and all of that. But as on the actual ground, it's functioning in the way that it should, because it's not being infiltrated in the same way that these corporations are. And I think what was really profound for me with the council tax journey was that I've never been given what I've asked for. It doesn't matter what it is. And I've dabbled with this with other companies. So the deed of assignments, or the liability order, or the transcripts. You never get what
contract.
you ask for. You never get the simplicity of, well, do you know what? If you're saying this, just give me the document and we can go our separate ways and move on. And that is what's very profound is I've never ever received anything of proof. It doesn't matter who it's from. Now, what I've done differently with the water is I've tried a different tactic with the water, and I actually wrote back to South West Water after receiving the water report, what was in the water, which had arsenic and all of this sort of stuff. And I wrote back to them and I actually gave them a conditional offer. And I said, first of all, I'd like you to write to me as just Victoria in lower caps in any correspondence, which they agreed. Then I asked them to accept my offer of £5 a month, bringing the water to my door. But because it's not drinkable and I can't use it with foods, I have to buy a distiller and I have to distill the water, which I do every day.
Charge them for it.
And that's so what I did was I went back with an offer, and they didn't respond in the time frame of 28 days. And because of that, I then just started paying £5 a month, and they've left me alone.
Yeah, it's simple as that. I mean, I went down, ironically, same company, South West Water, down a different route. I challenged them on the purity of the water. And I said, if it's not drinkable, I'm not paying. It's simple as that. And they basically came back with the same proof. It didn't have arsenic, it had something else in it. And I said, well, under this particular Health and Safety Act, and also I went through the regulations of what you're supposed to have, I'm not paying for this water until it's of a condition where I can actually drink it. And they never ever sent me a bill, and they never got back to me.
Yeah.
So and that was 5 years ago. I've never paid a water bill since.
Well, there you go. So I'm actually paying the water at £5 a month, but did a different way. And then with the gas,
Hang
Gas and
on,
electric's
wait a minute,
hilarious.
wait a minute. Before we all start moving on to the gas, I can actually chirp in here because
Go
I'm
on.
going
Oh,
through the
okay, go on
water
then.
as well. So hold
Well
ye
done.
horses,
Well
okay?
done, Chris.
So I put a
Flagpole in.
DSAR in to Anglian Water, and on the same day I cancelled our direct debits. The DSAR is still ongoing because they want proof of ID, and I'm saying, well, how much ID do you actually need? So I'm playing games with them. But our bills come through, and they want 400 and I think it's £401.80 something by the 16th of this month, because from the last 6 or 7 months they just stopped taking the regular payments of, I don't know, 30, £40 a month, and they just haven't taken anything. And that kind of coincided with them fitting the smart meter, which is out on the pavement, underneath the pavement, so we couldn't say that's not going on our house because it's not on our property. But it seems to have coincided with that. And so I'm kind of going through the whole Anglian water thing. So your experience and knowledge on this might come in handy for me later on down the line. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Just ask for the quality of the water. That's all it's about. Because at the end of the day, it's a consumable product, and consumable products need to have certain grading to them. Water, above all, is of course a human right, so they can't switch it off. But you need to just challenge the quality, because the quality of a product also matters.
I have said about the quality, whether it's got any heavy metals, parasites in it. I've also said about the fact that the smart meter now runs on the pipes on the water. So now, is there any radiation coming from that affecting the water? I'm getting like generic responses. I will send
it's
you. I will
usually
send you the
computerized.
emails I've got.
You've got
Yeah.
You've got an AI talking to you, probably. That's what most companies are doing now. They're incorporating AI systems into their customer service systems. So what you think you're actually getting a reply from is a person. It's actually an AI bot. I had that recently with a gas and electric guy, basically challenging throughout, because they started harassing me, and Victoria will probably pipe up on this about the Harassment Act. But yeah, they can't continually harass you. And so I said, well, I need to challenge this. And it gave me a very weird reply. And I thought, okay, that doesn't sound like a human being. And I challenged it again, and it said the exact same thing in the exact same tone, in the exact same way. I thought, this is a bot. This isn't a person. This is an AI. And the moment I started trying to basically challenge it, it hung up the phone.
Really?
So they've started using AI now, probably as a proxy and a bit of a sort of like, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I was shocked because it sounded like a human being.
See, I haven't had any interaction with them on the phone. I've literally dealt with them via emails,
That's always the best way.
because then you've got a paper trail.
Yeah, definitely.
Sort of.
Yeah, I flick the record button on my phone and then upload the audios to my laptop and then use that as my evidence.
Yeah, that's another thing. Always record.
I think harassment is a people probably feel fearful of using that word, but they don't realize that it is actually harassment, because I wonder how many people don't open those envelopes and it sits there in the corner and they're thinking about it while they're eating their tea, but they don't want to open it because they don't want to read what's in it. And that is harassment. And people don't probably
It's
tally
psychological fear, isn't it? It's psychological.
Yeah, it's absolutely awful. Whereas I now go, bring it on, bring it to my door. I'll open it and I'll challenge you. But that's taken me a very, very long time to get around that, because, when my husband got made redundant in lockdown, we couldn't pay our credit card bill. And we went into arrears, and I had to go back to work when I had a 20-week-old baby in the middle of COVID, in the middle of a COVID ward, because midwives have to work on all wards. We only have a very few wards as midwives, it's only a couple. And it was awful. But none of them cared. None of them bothered. And it affected your credit rating. But now I just think, well, okay, so what is my credit rating? What is it? What is it about? Who owns it? Is it my identity? And that's why I don't care if they slap £1 million of costs on my credit file. I could not care, because I'd rather never work in credit again and just work in cash if I had to, or gold, or seeds, or whatever.
Yeah, a quick mention on that is, obviously a lot of people worry about their credit scores, and these credit companies, they're very, very sneaky. They will literally just slap on like, oh, you've got minus 100 points out of 1,000 or 500 or whatever. And they won't tell you that until you've obviously paid or whatever you are using. Say, I don't know, what is it? A Clear Score. There's a company. You have to pay and you have to get the information. They lock the information away from you. That says a lot, that they've locked information away from you about your own credit score. Cash is king. Anything you want to get, be it a financed vehicle or something that's on via credit check, just bring cash with you. All companies like cash. It's them say, okay, well, I'll up the deposit by 1,000 then. And they'll go, okay, then with the credit score doesn't, it's fine. As soon as they know you've got money, it's fine. And if you're not falling into the system that we've been talking about on the podcast, cash is what matters to these companies. They want especially if it's physical. It's like, oh, the money's here. It's not a case of check. Okay, now we'll take it out of your debit account. You've got the money with you. And I've had that myself when I've gone to do something that I had a check. And I just said, I'll up the money a little bit. And they went, oh, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. And they took it, no problem. So it once again, it's companies controlling things and saying, oh, yeah, you've got a terrible credit score. Well, yeah, I do, but I also have loads of money. Like, oh, okay, don't worry about it then. So I'd say don't get fearful when it comes to credit scores and credit checks. It's nonsense, really.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I don't like credit scores, and they do seem to have you by the kahunas as well. Like you say, everyone's so wrapped up in credit score, but all that means is that it's entitling you to more debt.
Yeah, I think you're, my son's already got, he's bought a house, whereas I rented my whole life, and people go, yeah, but you're not going to get you're not going to save money in a pot. And I'm thinking, well, my husband's gran had a house all of her life, paid her mortgage off, and because she went in a home when she died, she had nothing. Why would I live for that moment? Why don't I just live in the moment? So, we're moving now. I'm leaving and moving to Scotland in the early part of next year, and I can just up and go. I can just leave and say, right, this house has done its service. Thank you very much, and goodbye, and off I go. So it's really interesting that it's very multifaceted, isn't it? When you don't pay a bill, my mortgage, I need to get a new car, and if I don't have bad credit, I won't get a car. I won't be able to remortgage. And my ex-husband's a perfect example. He's got a mortgage and he stopped paying every single bill, and he's like, I release the fear. If I lose the house and I have to live in a van or I live on some land, so be it. And I absolutely love that about him. Because my journey's rippled into his journey, but he's done his own wider reading. He's very big on Bitcoin and XRP, whereas I'm like, I don't really know if I want to go there. But so we're all on our own journey in this. And like the three of us have walked all different walks, come from all different walks of life, and are doing all different things. And all of it makes a difference. It doesn't matter what road we go down.
Yeah, that's a nice take on it, definitely. See, my biggest concern really is always going to be the welfare of the kids. And because my wife isn't quite in the same place as where I am, then it's because like the council tax and all that, it comes out of the mortgage account, which is all my wife's side. So I technically don't pay it, but I don't want her to pay it either, but she's not where I'm at. So that's kind of the fight I'm at. It's a family fight as opposed to a governmental one.
I'd say wait for Victoria's book to come out.
I don't know if I'm going to write
Absolutely.
a book.
You must write a book, even with the experience. It's a very interesting turn of events, especially from an NHS standpoint to start with. It sounds great. You definitely write a book, and especially if you've got a big document that could help other people. I would say release a book. I'm not in a position.
I actually can remember when I sent that bundle, I got the most aggressive email from the solicitor the day later, because I'd sent a previous bundle that was like tumbleweed. It was about 40 pages. It was all thin. And then, I got in touch with someone who put me in touch with someone else, and he rang me up, and he's the guy that runs the Realm of England, Robin Hood, and he said, how big are your balls? And I went, yeah, they're pretty big. And he was like, let's do it. So we did it, and I'm glad I took the risk, even though it was a bit wobbly. But I then went into the fact of it's not about the win, it's about the exposure. So whatever you do, it doesn't matter. And that's why I don't put too much emphasis on it. But when I put that in, the solicitors went absolutely crazy. You need to take legal advice now. And I was like, yeah, I bet you think I do. I've just removed your 12 presumptions of law, buddy.
Yeah, but why would an opposition tell you to seek legal advice? I mean, surely that's completely contradictory. They want to win. Why would they ask you to seek legal advice? That in itself is contradictory.
Because under the SRA, they have to offer you that under the SRA, under their rules. If I'm a litigant in person, they have to show that they're caring about me. But and I know, maybe many of the general public don't know this, but the minute you instruct a solicitor or barrister, they're speaking on your behalf. You're no longer you. You've lost your rights. You've lost your voice. You've lost everything.
All they want to do is make a deal.
Make a deal with the 12 presumptions of law. They're drawing upon your, if you look at solicitors' letters, there's loads of reference numbers all over it. But they have to do anti-money laundering. So when you get a threat from a solicitor, which I've had two now, it's not signed by anybody because they haven't opened the anti-money laundering, because they know there is no basis of their letter. It's just a threat. And that's what I'm learning. I just think, I don't care what you want to do. Unless you want to put your name to it and I face you in a courtroom, fine. And this is what I'm trying to now work on, my next steps with the council. And I've got some, really exciting things to talk about. But Chris, I can't give you it in this podcast.
Well, as long as you promise to give me the expose as you brought it up in this podcast, I think that's only fair.
Well, I think you'll find
we can do another one. We can do another podcast with the update.
We absolutely could, but there's someone that I'm working with who has their own podcast platform, who's in the team with me, and they get the first dibs.
Oh, well, no. In that case, I can understand, but I want second dibs.
I will give you second dibs, but I'm sure that we will be talking
sloppy seconds, as they call it.
Yeah. Sloppy seconds for you, Chris.
I'm going to just read something to you guys, that I've received from Derriford Hospital, where obviously we both worked. I don't know if you've seen my video on ACT credit management with the data protection over my car.
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, maybe we should wait for the next one and talk about this. It's really interesting. I think we should wait.
Yeah, we'll save it. We'll save
it.
I'd say, like, just to end on with the you just mentioned it, the signatures. Going back to obviously the main subject matter, the council tax. What most people don't realise is the fact that there's no names to anything to do with council tax ever. There's never any signatures. There's never anything to do with a person who's named. There's nothing. It's smoke and mirrors, essentially. There's no authority behind it. Like she was saying about the summons at the beginning, there's nothing on it. It's just administrative invitations. And for those listening to the podcast, it's an invitation. That's all it is.
An invitation I would recommend you avoid.
Correct.
Unless you're Victoria, of course.
Unless she said, "Oh, I'll be delighted." But yeah, signatures. Yeah, I'd say Victoria could probably touch on it a little bit more later. But yeah, signatures. That's also a very key part when it comes to council tax that a lot of people don't realise. Signatures are absent from council tax.
Yeah. Yeah. And a friend of mine has just had a letter from a solicitor, and it's actually signed by one of the solicitors. When we went away and used some of the Realm of England's paperwork and had and put a response together, they then replied on behalf of the actual company rather than the individual. So it is all in administration. Because they don't recognise us when we speak, we have to speak in administration, because that's how the whole world is set up. So you mentioned it earlier when you said about they don't recognise our free man of the land. When you meet them, they're like, I don't recognise that. That's why you have to meet them on an administrative level, on partial of some of their language and partial of yours. And it seems to have worked so far with me.
Use their language, above all, their own handbook is a very good device, because it's the whole thing that governs the council tax system. And obviously we've got the new edition coming out this month in September, which I will be reading through, but it will most likely say the exact same thing it has done for so long, 22 years now, that it is the liability orders don't exist essentially in law, And they don't. If they don't exist in law, then they're not enforceable. It doesn't. It just doesn't exist. It's a fiction. It's just, oh, we've got it. Okay, well, where is it? Oh, well, the court has it. Well, I've just called the court, and the court have said that you've got it. Oh, well, we haven't got it. So then you challenge these enforcement agencies. Have you got it? No. They'll shut up to your door with nothing. And you go, well, why are you here then?
I just find it also, in some ways, I find it also futile, because it's like you're getting little victories like Victoria and yourself and whatnot. But when is this whole system just going to collapse? When are people just going to realize what it is? And
when we stop paying.
Yeah, well, if this new thing in November happens and it ends up being the landlords and property owners who end up paying the council tax and not people who rent, in which case it's going to be a massive shift of power. Also, there's got to be protection in place for the people who rent, because then the landlords can just up the rent enormously, so that the tenants are the ones paying anyway. So we'll have to wait till November to see what happens with that.
But it could be a
definitely.
mass stop now. Everybody stops paying. The wages don't get paid in the council. They've got no money coming in. That is the only way.
Oh yeah, totally. I think I mentioned it in our podcast to conclude, Chris. It was, and I see that happening personally. No, because we've got massive issues in the country already, and people are not practically uniting over it at the moment. But we'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah, that's all we can do, really, isn't it? Well, listen, I think that's a good place to call it a day. I've very much enjoyed listening to you go on amongst everything that's going on here. Thank you all very much for your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Pleasure.
And I very much look forward to revisiting this again at a later date, hopefully under better circumstances. So thank you very much again. And to everyone listening who has made it to the end, thank you very much. I hope you've taken away a lot from this. And I hope you're also looking forward to the next revisit of this. So until next time, look after yourselves, and I will speak to you all again soon. Bye for now.